Hello everyone, today we'll be going over Android Studio again, but this time focusing on OS Wear and what it is and does, and then from there we'll be getting on into building an app for OS Wear and then explaining the files that work on it, as well as display some of the code that we have set up for app. So let's begin and let's get started. Okay, so what is Wear OS, and then what's the importance of it, the purpose of it? Well, Wear OS is a Google operating system for smartwatches and other wearable devices. You can think of it like a mini version of Android on your wrist. It's meant for quick stuff like checking messages, tracking your steps, or asking Google Assistant something without having to pull out your phone all the time. The cool thing is that it makes your watch feel more than like gadgets. It's basically an extension of your phone that you get to have with you on your wrist. And we use it, like I was saying, for many different things. Anywhere from texting, messaging, tracking our steps to our heart rate, and vice versa. Alright, so now we'll be talking about the types of files that we'll work on and for our project. And one of the first files that we're going to be working on is the themes.xml file. This is basically where our app's entire visual style is defined. So we can think of it like a blueprint for how it's going to look. It controls things like the colors, the fonts, and the theme settings. So for example, if you set a primary color here, all the buttons or headers that use that color automatically follow it. Same goes with the fonts. Once you define them once, the app knows how to use them consistently. So this makes the app look cohesive and professional, and it also makes it easier to change the look later without having to update everything manually all the time. So it's very useful in that regard. Next, we'll be talking about the Android manifest file. So this is basically like the app's manual for Android. It tells the system what's inside our app and how it should handle it. For example, it can describe app components like activities and services. So Android knows what screen or background processes our app has. It can also handle permissions, which is how the app knows to ask to use things like the camera or the internet. It also makes sure that the app can do what it's supposed to do without running into problems. And finally, you can list features that our app uses, like requiring a touchscreen or using certain hardware, so the system knows where your app will depend on. I've included a bit of my code just to see, to show it in action. That way, for our next video, we can dive deeper into it and explain what's actually going on in it. Okay, so for our next file, we have the activity main file, and this is basically where we're going to be defining our app's interface. Basically, it's you can think of it as another blueprint for what's going to appear on the screen. It handles the app layout, and organizes as well how everything is positioned and how the different sections relate to each other. It can also place UI elements like the text, the buttons, and the images, so that way the users can see them and they can interact with the app that way. Basically, it's essentially anything that the user sees or clicks, and it comes from this file, and make sure that the interface looks organized and that it also works smoothly. Okay, so for our next file, which might be our last file here, we have is the main activity. So this is where the main functionality of the app is defined. So this is going to basically contain the code that controls how the app responds to our user actions, like clicking the buttons on the apps, entering the text on the app, or navigating between screens that you might see, as you're navigating either, phones or your watches. It'll also let us connect to the layouts of the code. So this basically means that it's going to link the visual elements in activity main with the functions that make them work. This is basically going to ensure that everything the user interacts with behaves correctly, just so there's no mismatch or errors handling. In addition, as well, this file can handle things like initializing data, setting up event listeners, and managing how different parts of the app work together, so that the app runs smoothly as expected, and like I was saying, so that we don't run into any issues later on, eventually when we do get things going within the app. Okay, and with that, we have reached our closing statements. Alright, so this is going to mark the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next part, as that is where we can finally demonstrate what the code in our explanation is doing, and then get down to the process of the app we have in mind. So basically, the next video is basically, as I was saying, going to be going into more focus and detail of what's actually going on between each of the files. I know in the previous slides I showed things like the themes, the Android manifest, the activities, and I showed like just a little snippet of the code. But as I was saying, on our next video we're going to be going into much more deeper detail of it. So other than that, thanks for watching, and please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.